recently, a number of murders have taken place in my neighborhood. There are rumors that it's the work of a serial killer. All of the victims were children, and they all attended the same elementary school. They were killed within days of each other, and the crimes were very cruel and brutal. They were found in such a state of mutilation that their corpses were not fit to be seen. Each child had to be buried in a closed casket. I knew the parents of one of the boys and had to attend the funeral and pay my respects. It was a very sad and tragic day. There were a lot of flowers placed on his grave. I noticed there was a large amount of clover. When the funeral was over, I visited the graves of the other victims. I saw an old woman placing clovers on their graves. She must have been at least 80 years old, and she seemed like a kind old lady. With sad eyes, she quietly placed the clover next to each headstone with a gentle smile. Then she made the sign of the cross, put her hands together, and said a silent prayer. I wondered if one of the dead children was her grandchild. As the old woman passed by, I said politely, "Do you mind if I ask you something? Why do you place clovers on all the graves?" The old woman stopped and turned to me with a smile. "I always thought of clover as a happy flower," she replied. "Also, it brings good luck. You see, my grandson died too." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said. "Was he one of the victims?" "It was a separate incident," she said. "It happened at school. He was bullied for a long time, and one day they pushed him too far. One of the teachers said he was missing, and they found him in the school toilets. He had hung himself." Tears were flowing down the grandmother's face as she was unable to speak anymore. She turned away and left. That evening I went home feeling very sorry for the gentle old grandmother. I went to bed, but I couldn't sleep. Something was troubling me. I got up in the middle of the night and looked up the language of flowers in the dictionary. It said clover was a symbol of revenge. There was a young woman named Lydia whose boyfriend had been murdered. Even though 1 year had passed since he was killed, she still hasn't been able to get over it. They had been engaged to be married, but tragedy struck just days before their wedding. Her fiancé's body was found in a cellar. He had been savagely mutilated and murdered. Lydia has never recovered from his death because the police have never been able to find the murderer. One night, Lydia was driving home from the supermarket. She was lost in thought and paying little attention to the road. Suddenly, she saw a young man step out into the road. She tried to slow down, but it was too late. The car crashed straight into him, and his head smashed into the windscreen. She immediately called the ambulance, and the unconscious man was taken to the hospital. He was badly injured and laid in a coma. Consumed by guilt, Lydia went to visit him every day. She often questioned the doctors about his condition. After a few months, the young man came out of the coma, but he had lost the power of speech and was suffering from amnesia. Lydia still came to see him, though, in the hospital every day. She even gave him speech therapy to help him learn to talk again. A few months after the accident, he was well enough to leave the hospital. He still hadn't regained his memory, but they continued to see each other. One night, the young man asked her out on a date. After spending so much time in each other's company, they began to fall in love. Lydia began to think that she had finally found true happiness. One day, Lydia was showing him family pictures in her photo album when they came across the picture of her ex-boyfriend. The young man's eyes grew wide as he stared at the photograph. He said he recognized her deceased boyfriend. His memory had returned. My wife and I took a much-needed holiday in England. It's a long flight from New York to London. We checked into a nice hotel. After a long day of sightseeing, we just collapsed into bed. Just a few minutes ago, we were woken up by some noises outside. I looked out the window and the police were everywhere. They yelled up at me that there was a robbery and there was a murder on the second floor. I'm on the third floor, and I can see that the cops have the stairs and elevators locked down. The murderer can't get up to our floor, so we're in no danger. My wife and I are tired, so we're going back to bed. I really hope they catch the guy. My job means that I'm always on a train. I was on the train again today when suddenly a woman appeared in front of me. I can remember her face clearly. It's really sad. Again, we were fighting, me and my wife. She really pisses me off, so I decided to just kill her. I quickly murdered her and buried her under the house through the basement door. I didn't tell my 2 children though, but I think they know because they look at me weirdly every time they see me, so I decided to tell them. Hey kids, I need to tell you guys something. Really? Me too, Daddy. Oh, you go first then. Why are you giving Mom a piggyback ride all the time? A man, exhausted from his long journey, decides to go to sleep. He shuts off all the lights and goes to sleep. When he wakes up, he's already killed 365 people. He does not sleepwalk and slept all night like a baby. A man is lying drowned in a dead forest far from water. How did this happen? A man is in court for killing his wife. In the closing statement, the man's lawyer surprises everyone when he announces his wife was just missing. Everyone look at the doors. His wife is going to walk in those doors in about 30 seconds. The entire court is silent, and the jury stares at the door as the lawyer and the defendant stare at them. After a couple minutes, the lawyer says, "See, if you were so sure he killed his wife, you wouldn't be watching that door." The jury goes into deliberation and comes back almost immediately with a guilty verdict. A man was shot to death while in his car. There were no powder marks on his clothing, which indicated that the gunman was outside the car. However, all the windows were up and the doors locked. After a close inspection was made, the only bullet holes discovered were on the man's body. How was he murdered? I was blessed with 2 wonderful kids. I'm not saying that because every parent loves their kids. My kids are just little angels. Jack is the most adorable 4-month-old ever, and Madison just turned 2. They never scream, cry, or fight each other at all. Our house is luxurious, but it's the smell that gets me. We have a dog, and he just goes all over my bedroom floor. I love him to death, but sometimes he really gets on my nerves. But he can't make it outside because he's allergic to sunlight. I'll have to talk to my wife about what to do next. My wife is truly the love of my life. We met in Cancun, and then we just hit it off. After 10 months, we had Morgan and got married the next month. Sadly, I don't see her that much anymore. She's always with the kids and trying to help the dog. It was hers before we got married. Most people are scared what's under their bed, but not me. Everything I love is under it. Thank you for listening to episode 7 of the Cryptic collection. As always, last week's answers are posted below. If you have any stories that you would like to share, please email me at the email address shown below. We've reached over 100 subscribers and counting, so please share this with your friends. Or else you'll be dead by midnight.